The death toll in Gaza surpassed the 60,000 mark. Elsewhere in the world, we have now Western countries lining up to say, come September in the UN General Assembly, they will recognize a Palestinian state. First, last week, it was Emmanuel Macron of France. Then yesterday, Keir Starmer of the UK. But in Israel, human rights organizations, B'Tselem and the Physicians for Human Rights, releasing damning reports accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. It's particularly raised issues of the direct targeting of hospitals, blocking medical aid and evacuations, the killing and arrest of medical personnel, and the systemic dismantling of Gaza's healthcare and survival infrastructure. Joining me now on the line from Israel is Aseel Aburass, who's a researcher for Physicians for Human Rights in Israel. Good morning, Aseel. Really appreciate your time. Firstly, what is the significance? What significance does it hold when Israeli organizations themselves accuse their state of genocide?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Amazing. So, it is important, when you say words, it's important, when you say genocide, it holds a moral and legal sense. And it's important to call things what they are when you see what is happening for the past 22 months. It's important to say what is happening by the legal term. Specifically when it's the crime of crimes, genocide has been happening the past 22 months. And what we hope is that by calling it like that, not just those organizations before us and researchers and institutions and international institutions have been calling it like that, the Genocide Convention will go into effect. It's not just Israel that will be accountable for its action, but also all of the other countries that are signed on the Genocide Convention.
Is this a unanimous determination by other healthcare medical groups in Israel?
Or if anything, it's all the other way around. Since the beginning of the war, we have seen that the medical community within Israel have been actually calling for bombing hospital and for arresting doctors and even not giving treatment for Palestinian combat and who were incarcerated. So it's all the other way around. Of course, there are a minority that
Yeah,
is, of course, against what is happening
yeah.
and is being vocal, especially for the past
Mm,
few months, especially with the starvation as that has been making,
mm,
headlines everywhere in the world. But it is not enough. And the internet, as well as not just the medical community, but also the institutions and the associations and the hospitals have been, you know, have been going along and have been the not just supporting the war,
mm,
but have been you know have been being active also with this delegitimization
mm.
of the healthcare community in Gaza.
Yeah.
And we look at it as one of the main reasons why the world green lighted
Mm,
the destruction of the healthcare system, this
mm.
delegitimization of the healthcare system.
Just how prominent is, as you say, a minority, but an internal dissenting voice, and
Yes.
is it having any real shift, leading to any real shift in public opinion and maybe even policy?
No, not really, unfortunately. I mean, for the past few days, there has been more protests because of the recent pictures that everybody's seeing, not just us, but everybody's seeing the recent pictures of children who are being starved. And there were more protests, but for me, it's painful to know that the only way for more protests to happen and for Gaza to headline in the world, you need to see rib cages. You need to see starved children in order for it really to make some impact.
Um,
Dozens have been saying yes.
B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights in Israel, you have also contextualized the 7th of October. You recognize it was a triggering event within our most recent history. But how do you contextualize that to fellow Israelis who seemingly want who want what they say is vengeance of the death of 1,200 Israelis versus the death of now 60,000 Gazans?
Of course, we recognize it as a something that started this current offense, but it didn't start, it's not the first thing that started the dehumanization and the war and on Gaza and on Palestine. History didn't start then. It didn't start on the 7th of October. There were numerous cycles of violence before 2014, 2018, 2021, 2009. All of these were wars that Israel had it got green light to do and was never held accountable. But we do, of course, recognize it as a horrific crime that happened on the 7th. There were 1,200 civilians who were 1,200 people who were killed, amongst them many civilians. But I don't know. If you ask me if it wouldn't happen, if it didn't happen, we don't know. I think the war and the killing of Gaza wouldn't happen, maybe on a slower scale, but it would have happened eventually. This is my opinion.
Aseel, just personally, and speaking to the fellow members of your respective organizations personally, what's it like being a dissenting voice in Israel? And as you said, the majority of Israelis don't share your perspective.
So you are a minority. You know that what you're saying is a minority of the voices within the larger society. We are, as an organization, we have, coming up with this report, it doesn't come up easily, not just because of what we're saying, but also because of the risks. We had to do months and months of assessment of what does it mean for us to come up and say there was chances, there is risk of us losing, not just the organization, but we do a lot of we have a lot of activities that is not just for and advocating for Palestinians, but also for example, for a statusless people, we have a clinic in Jaffa in Tel Aviv. So there is a risk when we come up with, it is considered a radical thing to say that this is genocide. It is considered a radical thing, not just in Israel, I think in the world. So when we come up with something like that, there is risks on the organization, also on the individual level. There were many people in the organization that also received threats, on their lives individually, whether for publishing or for writing on X and on Facebook, or whether or protesting. And there's a voice. For the past 22 months, anyone who's against the war have been really was targeted, not just by enforcement, but also by the public itself. So it's not easy, but the truth must be said, even if the truth must be said. And usually throughout history, when genocide is happening.
Aseel Aburass, really appreciate your time. She's a researcher for Physicians for Human Rights in Israel.